Michael Fabricant.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I look at the motion with interest. It talks about revival. To me, it's the revival of a corpse. It's a little bit like sort of a Hammer movie. We have this thing. We talk about connectivity. We talk about the honourable gentleman there from Crewe talks about the need for additional capacity. I agree with him. But let's at least do it properly. I mean, you know, the aim was to get people off aircraft, people who want to fly to Paris from Manchester. Well, that isn't going to happen, is it? Why? Because instead of going to St Pancras, connecting with HS2 and going straight through to Paris, instead you have to change in London. It's not going to replace air travel. Yes, it will give extra connectivity as far as Crewe and London is concerned, but it's not going to actually meet the guidelines of what was originally intended of HS2. And why is it going in straight lines? Because we intended to go at 220 miles an hour. And yet the Oakerby review says it's not going to go at that speed. To save money, it's going to go at about 150, 160 miles an hour instead, in which case it could have gone alongside the M40 or the M1 as Arup originally proposed, which would have saved at least £20 billion of your taxpayers' money and my taxpayers' money and been less environmentally damaging. So when it comes to a vote, if it does come to a vote this evening, I will vote against. Not because I am against extra capacity. Of course I want extra capacity. Of course I recognise that the West Coast Main Line is working at near 100% capacity. I totally disagree with my honourable friend, the member for Crewe, who completely misunderstands the condition. Of course it's fine for Crewe, but for all those towns like Stone and others along the West Coast Main Line, if you have extra freight on the West Coast Main Line, then it's going to mean less passenger traffic. And anyone with an ounce of mathematical or engineering skill can simply see this. No, I'm very angry about this because when I see a project which could have been done so well destroyed by people like Lord Adonis and then rather stupidly, if I may say, adopted by a Conservative government, when we could have had an HS2 based on the Arup plan, which would have been cheaper, which would have connected better, which would have been environmentally less damaging, yet we don't do this, then I say, has this House lost its mind? And when I see the Labour Party supporting the government, then I know that the House has lost its mind, because whenever you see agreement between both sides of the House, you know there has to be something wrong. So, maybe, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is a revival. But for me, it's far from a revival. This is a dead, rotten corpse that we are trying to bring to life. And despite the government's support for it, and despite the fact, incidentally, that the former mayor of London said that Euston is not capable of moving traffic away from it now, let alone with HS2, because there isn't enough capacity on tube trains, there isn't enough capacity at Euston for buses, for all the people who come down before HS2. Despite the fact that the government supports it, I'm afraid I've got to oppose it. And why? Not just for the sake of the people of Lichfield, but for the hope that maybe someday someone in this House is going to say enough is enough. If we're going to do something, let's at least do it properly.